the new sequel to 1986's Top Gun Maverick, starring the main man himself, Tom Cruise. Is it really that good after the 36-year hiatus? Feel free to like and subscribe, and let's find out.
Give me a Top Gun movie again.
Top Gun Maverick sees the return of Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell in the twilight of his career. Can he pass the torch to a new generation of naval pilots for one last mission impossible?
It's one of life's mysteries, sir.
So in terms of my expectations going into this picture, I basically assumed it was going to be, well, if a Top Gun sequel was one of the Mission Impossible sequels. Okay, it's going to be technically good, it's going to be visually stunning, and it will be an adequate movie, which is a kind of a mid-level expectation. Not amazing, not bad, just a pretty decent expectation.
Just want to manage expectations.
Finding out that it's going to be an IMAX thing, they've used IMAX cameras that have been designed to fit into cockpits, it's not going to be a green screen thing, then my expectations were higher. In that regard, my expectations were not disappointed, they were actually met. I knew that Ed Harris was going to be in it. Without giving too much away, when he was in it, he was good. I'll get more into that towards the end of this video. Jennifer Connelly was good as what she was given, which is to basically be the older love interest for Tom Cruise, and of course the replacement for Blondie, who of course is very iconic in terms of the movie and all the pop culture of the 80s. How many times did we see the blonde woman from Top Gun in the Berlin video? Jennifer Connelly replacing the blonde chick Kelly McGillis. She had big shoes to fill, to be perfectly honest with you. However, now, just before I give you my honest take on Top Gun Maverick, we're going to look at the significance of the original Top Gun movie that spawned the new current sequel 36 years later. Top Gun was a pop culture breakthrough in the 1980s in terms of commercialism and iconography. It was the movie that put Tom Cruise on the map as a new Hollywood superstar.
Am I using you, Raymond? Yeah. Shut up! You used me!
It propelled Cruise to do some of his best work in the mid-late 80s. I'm taking you back to a time when Tom Cruise was the muse.
What's the matter with this guy? Did you f***ing hear what I said? Shut up!
The song, Take My Breath Away.
Take my breath away.
Older millennials remember their older Gen X siblings and cousins listening to that song. Your older brother maybe wanted to be Cruise. Your older sister maybe wanted to date Cruise. In terms of the original Top Gun movie, you might forget it and you might think it was iconic, but just a surface testosterone movie. Then you watch it and realize, okay, there was some actual depth to this picture. First off, he's the young buck, as much front as talent. He does the goofy singing number, hey look what a ballsy move that was, but if he gets rejected by the blonde chick, he can say, well I was just messing around, she didn't reject the real me anyway.
You never close your eyes.
This is allegorical of the young dude, full of front, but is too scared to just be himself and go and talk to her like a human.
Real slick.
She on the other hand is the nerd who spent the majority of her youth in the library studying aviation, but now as his flight instructor, she wants to hook up with the young hot dude because she's neglected most of her 20s romance-wise and is anxious about hitting 30. Otherwise, she doesn't really like him like that. With all the Mission Impossible sequels, the Top Gun sequel marks a return to where it all started for Cruise, 86 to 89, a succession of success.
It's my attitude, right? Shit. I fought for my country. I am a Vietnam veteran.
Not just an action hero and acting stuntman, but a seriously acclaimed character actor.
I found out a few days ago that I have a brother and I want to be with him and I'm supposed to give him up.
I have to be very honest here, I can't just do a yes man review. Ultimately, I liked the practical effects, I liked the new dynamic of the younger team. I to an extent liked Cruise being the old stubborn guy who's still rebellious, but in the end, I felt this picture was too much of a Cruise venture, he had too much input.
Just want to manage expectations.
Just like a lot of his Mission Impossible films, when he gets a whole yes man production team around him, he takes over the picture, and in this movie you can feel that. Cruise is at his best when he's working with a serious director.
Did you see what we did today?
I wanted to like this film. I don't dislike it in terms of practical effects, but I felt the only way to make it a worthy Top Gun sequel is you've really got to pass the torch to a new interesting cast of characters. And they had an interesting cast of characters, but unfortunately they felt underutilized and neglected in terms of screen time and space to shine, and enough acting time and character arc to develop themselves and grow their own wings and fly, because it's still Cruise being the guy at 58, 59, then I feel that affects the picture. Like, he's done great stuff outside of 86, 89, don't get me wrong.
You promise not to tell anybody, right?
But he's He's become too much of a Hollywood powerhouse, sometimes to his own detriment. And in this picture, you can feel it. I really wanted more from the new guys. But with that being said, there's still enough here to warrant seeing Top Gun Maverick in the theatre, preferably in IMAX. In regards to the Jennifer Connelly thing, she always had big shoes to fill to replace the blonde chick. In this movie, it's as if the blonde chick never even existed. I get it, she's old. No one wants to deal with a 64-year-old chick anymore. She hasn't aged well, they don't want none of that. In real life, you can't even picture Cruise with Jennifer Connelly in real life. He's one of those old Hollywood dudes that wants to always go out with a 19-year-old chick, yeah? So Connelly, that's a stretch, even them two getting together. The original Top Gun was not just a cruise vehicle. The original Top Gun was about all the relationships. You watch the new Top Gun movie, you see Tom Cruise and you're like, this is just an old guy who's just an aviation dude. Outside of that, what is he? Whereas in the first Top Gun, it's like, this is a guy who's a hotshot kid, who's the best pilot, but he's got a whole bunch of other stuff. Ultimately, in the original Top Gun, you get the sense he's doing all this jazzy flying, not for the sake of it like in the second, but to pull the blonde girl. And thus Connelly felt like she was an avatar of a middle-aged girlfriend put in the picture to give Cruise a love interest, because that's the generic formula this movie calls for. The scene where Jennifer Connelly and Cruise are like making out, but then Cruise has to sneak out the roof so that the daughter doesn't catch them. I'm like, mate, if she was that considerate and selfless about her kid, she wouldn't have got divorced in the first place. The daughter becomes the new parent, and it's a whole taking the Gen X's back to their teen years where they had to make out and then run out the window when all these girls were teenagers and fancy Cruise. This picture is a platform for Gen X women in their 50s to relive their teenage years.
I love the idea of like a middle-aged woman
With a young guy like yourself?
Just want to manage expectations.
The strength of the film, the return scenes of Val Kilmer, best scene in the film. I liked the Miles Teller character as Goose's son and Cruise's protege, despite feeling he was underutilized. If they had have developed that relationship a little bit more, we would have had a picture with some more depth. Another thing, you remember Mr. Strickland from Back to the Future?
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.
He was the main superior in the first Top Gun picture.
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
They didn't bring James Tolkien back. They just brought Ed Harris in a cameo, which is essentially an upgraded version of the Mr. Strickland dude.
You're a slacker.
It would be good if you can bring him back.
What is that?
But I get it, he's 90. Yeah, whereas Ed Harris is like 70. Ed Harris was the logical replacement, but again, too much of a brief role. In terms of final rating, I'm gonna give it a 7.1 because of its practical effects, because of some of the nostalgic themes, but really I'm being a bit generous. I want you to enjoy this film. I hope you did enjoy this film. That's just my personal feeling. In regards to the effort and dedication that was put into bringing the world another Top Gun movie, I'm giving Top Gun Maverick a 7.1. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. Big up Tom Cruise, and I'll see you on the next one.
Just want to manage expectations.